my goal here is to talk about the importance of bringing diverse points of view and life
Uh-huh.
experiences to the profession so that we can learn from each other. And I think there's a great lesson for that in general, regardless of whether it's revolving around sexuality or racial relationships. I just think it's important that we approach things looking for an opportunity to find common ground with others.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please?
Greetings, Accounting High. Alex Miles here, your friendly office administrator, bringing you your dose of morning announcements. Calling all cool kids. And if you're listening to this right now, that's you. FreshBooks and your favorite wrapping custodian from Accounting High will be hitting the road in the coming weeks and would love to connect with you in person. Join us for an accounting partner meetup for the opportunity to network with your local like-minded peers and the FreshBooks team. Come hang out with us to enjoy food, drinks, and free swag, and an opportunity to earn some extra credit with the possibility of being featured on a fresh recording of Accounting High. So if you're in the Atlanta, Portland, Toronto, or Austin area, head to the show notes for this episode to learn more and register today. Spots are limited, so act quick. How does Scott's habit of drinking sparkling water relate to his firm's success using carbon? You probably see no relation to those, but in true Scott Scarano fashion, he is able to take you on the journey of how those two things have way more in common than what you may think. Sandy Johns, owner of Revolution Financial, joins Scott in today's episode. They discuss everything from diversity and religion to crypto and pinching pennies. You won't want to miss the rock-solid conversation that these two share with one another about their lives and experiences, both personally and in the accounting profession. So sit back, relax, and open your mind, because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
By Accounting High,
the views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
the events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
Of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show.
Scott Scarano, solo.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Very special guest. Joining us from the front lines of the Sandy Revolution, Sandy Johns.
Hey, Scott.
I'm excited about this one.
Oh, man, I'm stoked. I remember our initial conversation. I wish that had been recorded. It was so fun.
Yeah, I think all the conversations are fun these days. Just depends on your mood, too. Right? We were both in good moods that day, so it was a lively, spiraled upward conversation.
Yeah, I'm in a tired mood at this point in tax season, but you know what? Let's recreate the magic. We can do this.
Thank you for joining me during tax season, too. God, I remember how bad this week would have been if I was still doing taxes.
Yeah.
Please. Enlighten me. Make me feel bad.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's tough. So when you and I talked, what was it, 2.5 months ago? And
It was February 9th.
Okay.
According to my little book here. Yeah.
See, your notes do come in handy. So you tossed out the date. I'm like, you know what? That's fine because we're usually winding down. And of course, that's not the case. It's insane. And I think what's different is that the last 2 years, the deadline's been extended. So
Right.
even though we were kind of racing toward the what would have been the original deadline, just to take our foot off the gas pedal a little bit and rest a little bit, we still have a cushion, and this year there is no cushion.
We had a prolonged death last time. It wasn't, we
Yeah.
didn't die 1,000 deaths in like 2 months. We were killed slowly over that time. And I get it. Ackerman said this earlier today, that it just felt a lot shorter and condensed.
Yeah.
And he's been doing taxes for a while too. And I think, just looking at it from the perspective of it never ended for almost over a year and a half.
Yeah.
It just kind of bled into itself and it was always something new. It never felt like we were actually done with the 2019 return, maybe 2020.
That's exactly right. It was It was a torturous process. And this year has been so much better for my stress level and that of my staff. So it's been great. It's just, now we've got a week left and we've just really got to pound the work out. But it's good. It's good. We can see that finish line. So I've already started, I told my spouse, I've started fantasizing about these things that I'll actually have time to do a week from now. So, I usually don't let myself do that until we're at this stage. So I'm excited about what's coming next.
Can I give you some advice? Prioritize the things you want to do.
Good advice. I'll tell the family. Scott said, I'll be like,
we can't
who?
do all of this. Give me an example of something that you're going to do.
Well, we have a trip booked with the family, but really it's more about outside of work stuff. It's more about just spending intentional time with family and friends and then getting my personal life organized. So it's nothing super exciting, but we are going out. I'm going out to Engage. Do you go to Engage?
I went last year, but I didn't go to Engage. I was in Vegas at the same time, hanging with everybody, but I didn't actually get a ticket to the conference.
Okay, so I'm going out there for that, and then the family will meet me out there, and then we're going to hit California, start in San Diego, and then go up to San Francisco. Spend maybe 3 weeks. Last year we did 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah, it was insane. We started in the panhandle of Florida and worked our way through New Orleans and then over into Texas and hit Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and Austin. And
you had an RV? Did you say you get an RV?
No, we have a minivan. It was me and Carrie and our 2 boys who at the time were, they were 11 and 6. Now they're 12 and 7. So it's fun time. We like to do the road trip thing. 6 weeks was a little too much. What happened? We had a great time. But what we found was that it ate up too much of the summer. There wasn't enough summer left when we got back. So,
do you get Airbnbs when you do that? And my brother's been doing stuff like this. They get tiny houses, which I think is really cool.
Oh, that's way cool.
They get these. They take the dogs, and now they're in Nashville, but they do these little trip to trip places, and then get the little Airbnbs or tiny houses on each one.
That's neat. That's neat.
It's like going to Disney World and going to all the different worlds, right?
Right.
You go to the different parks. And it's like mini vacations within each one. They all have their own theme. So it's like when you go from city to city and travel. I think that's really cool.
That's good stuff.
So you use the phrase spouse. Tell me a little bit about your family, because you have a unique family.
Yes. So I am married to my childhood sweetheart, who is female. So that's why you're saying it's a little bit different. But we met when we were 11. And have been together since we moved in together like 2 weeks outside of high school. And we've been together ever since. And I'm knocking on 47 now. So we've got this thing figured out. I think we're going to make it for the long haul. But both of our boys are adopted. I've got them fresh from the hospital.
People make assumptions. I make assumptions. You're living in the South.
Yeah.
You're doing taxes. You're CPA. This is not your traditional breed of the bread. So you probably have to deal with adversity. Why don't we just talk about that too a little bit? Do you deal with any of that being in this profession?
Sometimes, but not as much as you would think. For one, it depends on, building a good reputation. The work, you can't argue with the quality of the work and the relative kindness of the people who deliver the services. Oftentimes people don't know unless you tell them. And then if they find out after the fact, it doesn't matter because a relationship has been created.
But it's important for you to have that mindset mostly. And I think that you obviously have the right take on all of it. It's how I react to certain things too that other people say. I think that if you have the right mindset and the right approach to it.
Scott, that is so right. And this could be true for most anyone. There could be a reason for each of us to walk around with a chip on our shoulder, looking for people to say things that would offend us. But if we approach things from what I like to call a grace-filled perspective,
say that again.
A grace-filled perspective, meaning
grace-filled.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and
I thought you said gray field, and I was trying to relate that to all this. I didn't. A grace. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Grace. And the background on that, just briefly, my dad is a Baptist preacher. So growing up, the worst, and I'm talking about conservative. We couldn't wear pants. We weren't allowed to go to the movies. I couldn't watch the Brady Bunch because the parents were divorced in it. So we're talking about extreme. I was put on, I was grounded for 3 weeks one time because I tried on a pair of pants at the mall. So this is extreme. So, coming,
Wow, I can't imagine living in a strict house. Like that right there is different to me too. I knew a lot of friends whose parents were really strict. A Southern Baptist household.
the
So
worst thing imaginable in that environment is for your child to be gay, right?
yeah, in their religion, right? That time period, isn't it wrong according to
Oh,
the
yes. According to many interpretations of scripture, it is wrong. And that's why it comes back around to the grace-filled approach. I love my family so much. We have an
sure,
extraordinary relationship. The worst thing that they could know about me is that I'm gay. And ultimately, I couldn't bring myself to tell them. Ultimately, my dad just said, let's talk about the reality of the situation. It was after our first son was born. And, it's like, okay, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? And I never could bring myself to do it because I was so afraid that I would lose this relationship that is among the most important to me in life. And they were devastated, of course, but the grace that they showed, because just as I was worried about the loss of the relationship, they were too, because they loved me. And so it involved grace on both sides. Carrie and I had to show grace for them as they wrapped their head around the truth of this and grieved the loss of who they wanted their daughter to be, right? And
right?
then they had to show grace by accepting me and my family if they wanted to maintain a relationship. So there was grace on both sides. And I think there's a great lesson for that in general, regardless of whether of revolving around sexuality or racial relationships. I just think it's important that we approach things looking for an opportunity to find common ground with others.
Well, it's learning. I think once you educate somebody, they can't be uneducated about something, right or wrong. They're on the other side of that portal or that matrix of one way of understanding the world versus another. And once they understand and they know they can't go back to how they used to think, then they forgive themselves too. And then they can treat everybody else differently because they look at themselves differently.
Yeah.
Like it's almost easier for something to be wrong in somebody's eyes than to actually be right, because then they have to reconcile how they thought of things.
That's right. And I think that that's the danger of staying in our own bubbles. If we only surround ourselves with people who are like us, we're never going to grow and change and learn. And I think
Right.
that's why the conversation around diversity is so important in the profession. And you hear a lot of BIPOC people on Twitter and text.
What type people? BIPOC?
BIPOC. And I'm not sure I'm
BIPOC?
saying the acronym correctly.
What does BIPOC mean?
Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. And I hope that now you got me worried. I'm so worried.
No.
No.
I'm just worried that I didn't know what that word meant because I see it all the time. And honestly, it's one of those acronyms that I don't even know anymore. Acronyms get fuzzy sometimes for me because an acronym becomes the word later.
Yeah. Okay. So I just Googled it. I'm relieved. It is
Cool.
Black, Indigenous,
So you
and
know
people
what
of
it is.
color. Yeah, but diversity is so important. And this is one of the things I struggle with, right? You're a white male, Scott. I'm
Yeah.
quite fond of you. I relate to you. I enjoy you. We share many things in common. And I don't think it's
Yeah.
fair that you don't have access to the same opportunities because you're a white male. I'm raising two white males. And I don't want
Yeah.
them to not have opportunities because they're
I was
white
very,
males.
very privileged. Very privileged. If we can go into white privilege, I lived it all my life and I know what it is.
And I do too. But where I was headed is that I can only imagine how you must feel as a white male that, I would like to speak at a conference, but maybe you're not given the opportunity because maybe someone else who is in the BIPOC community needs to be given that opportunity.
This is going to be a generational shift. So if we're talking about getting more females and people of color on panels, take me off a panel to put them on. I think that's what I'm also saying too.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that important to say that another person can't say in a better way too.
Well, I'm probably confusing things, and I apologize. But my goal here is to talk about the importance of bringing diverse points of view and life experiences to the profession so that we can learn from each other. Because, I had an interesting conversation. I'm a big fan of the Atlanta Braves. I'm like a huge sports fan. My friends challenged me, and one of them challenged me about wearing Braves jersey because it had a tomahawk on it. So we went down to Florida with some friends and we're having a conversation and I brought this to the table. I don't understand what the problem is with the name Braves. Doesn't that connote warrior? Doesn't that connote courage? You know what?
Brave is you were so brave there. Like you can't make fun of somebody and say that. You know?
Right. That was my argument and my approach. And one of my friends just absolutely crawled me. And it ended up kind of ruining the vibe of the night. I got ticked, she got ticked. But then, you know what? It caused me to really think about it. And it caused me to go research indigenous people. And as a result of having been challenged, now I won't tell you where I landed on that argument because that's not important, right? What's important is the fact that I was challenged by someone and it caused me to go learn more, and now I'm better informed. But if I hadn't placed myself in a situation where it was uncomfortable, this is someone that I love, and I felt like they jumped down my throat. But ultimately, it proved to be a good experience, and my friend and I are fine.
That's egos talking sometimes too. Maybe you guys were just wanted to compete in something else. You should have played pinball or ping pong or something, you know?
Yeah.
That's funny. But I'm sure everything's cool and you're still friends.
Oh,
There's nothing wrong. But it's like, you know, those kind of things you touch. So it's about how people individually react as well. Sometimes if somebody throws fire, the next person's going to only know to throw another flame at them. I don't know. Fire's not a good analogy. You can't throw fire. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. Wait a
pivot.
second. In Super Mario, you can throw fireballs.
You can throw fireballs, but they spit fireballs though, because it's kind of like a spit noise. Do your kids play video games? Do your kids?
Yeah.
What do they play? Do they have Switch?
My youngest has a Switch. My oldest has an Xbox.
Xbox. So that's a different level of video games on that. I don't think I could even handle Xbox video games these days.
I can't believe how fast that stuff goes. You know, and I used to game when I was little, and now I just can't keep up.
So I can keep up with the Mario games, and that's like the only thing I'll allow myself to play because otherwise I got to learn too much about how to play a game and what all the controls do. I don't have that kind of patience. Mario is just easy, you know. It's usually intuitive. Yeah. Play Mario Kart, play Mario Golf. That's fun. Those are the two that I play with him. He plays all kinds of games though. These, you know, the kids these days with the games, right?
Oh my gosh. How old is yours?
He's my middle son. He's 8. He just turned 8.
Fun.
Yeah, I got to remember these ages because he just had a birthday, and then my youngest, she just turned 4, so she's not quite 4 yet. You're my oldest in high school. So let's go back to yours and the profession. Let's pivot again. So we're in the middle of tax season right now. Frame the conversation around your team and your office. Let's pivot there too.
Okay, so we're a relatively small shop. There are 4 full-time, 2 part-time. We run a lot of work through here. The firm is kind of segmented into, there's a tax side and accounting side. And on the tax side, I made the decision last year to move to outsource. And I'm excited to talk about that because it has really been phenomenal. We use the SurePrep tool set, their binder package, their tax caddy, which is sort of their client-facing portal. And we've used that for a number of years and love it. And we decided based on
Does that sit on top of UltraTax? Does it work with UltraTax, or what do you guys use?
We use UltraTax, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember you saying UltraTax.
Yeah.
So it sit aside from it or on top of it?
It is aside from it. So Donna Bordeaux, who you may know from the community. You know Donna?
I know Donna. We had an episode with Donna.
Oh, gosh,
she's
I
the
missed
Wizard
that.
of Lake Wiley. Yeah, Wizard of Lake Wiley. Yeah, definitely check out that one. Donna and Ackerman, my co-host, are pals. That's how I know Donna.
Okay.
I was on XPAC with her. My first foray into XPAC. That's how I met Donna.
I love her.
Through Xero.
You talk about no
Donna's the
nonsense.
best.
Man, I love it too.
Yeah. So I was thinking of her when you were talking about the RV because she lives in an RV basically. I'm always seeing where she's at. She's in all kinds of places, always on a trip. and is running a pretty successful firm while she's
Heck
at
yeah.
it.
Heck yeah.
So shout out to Donna.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to Donna.
Well, she told me she like shot down all of my reasons for concern with outsource. Now she uses a different provider, but that's what caused us to put our toe in the water. We tested it.
She don't have to deal with people problems. Donna is
I
running
know.
her show. She never has any people problems because she don't want to have any people. I love it.
I know. I listen. She has been such an inspiration.
That's a smart way of doing it. All I deal with is people problems. That's all that I have to focus on these days. People.
Yeah.
So love people though. Can't do it without them. So, but we get to outsourcing and they become part of your people though.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
I don't know
right.
if you've had that experience,
Yeah.
but
So the beauty of it is that, while our team has 6 people, now suddenly there's a team of 300 people over in India who they're working our stuff. I don't know them, I mean, I recognize the names here and there, but the cool thing is if we come across something that is unique and we haven't really seen it before, chances are one of the 300 over there have because they work with firms across the country. So it's really made our team feel bigger, and it has lessened my review time because now we have more eyes on the stuff. So I think it's a big part of what has contributed to my lower stress level this season.
yeah, capacity problems are instantly fixed once you have a resource of capacity, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to overextend yourself because sometimes you feel bad for the team, to push too much on them. So then if you're like me, you end up taking on too much more just to keep everybody happy.
That's right.
It's
That's
a
right.
matter of how many people can we keep happy in 1 year. Tax accountants do that in 2 months, like it's crazy how
I
many
know.
people, and then it throws your mood off when you have a deal with at least one really bad person or 2 bad people in one day. Like if you have 2 bad experiences or even one, it'll kill your mood for the rest of the day
Yep.
too.
Yep. That's no
So,
joke. That's
Keeping
no
people
joke.
happy. So if you can just focus on that, I mean, I guess is that what's your role now in the firm?
It's selling and it's relation. So you said that Donna, she wants to eliminate people from the equation, and I can't do that. I enjoy,
Well, you're augmenting your people with support.
That's right.
too.
That's right. But in terms of my role, it is really client facing and client massaging. I enjoy that. So my role is final review before signature, and then, talking to the clients and helping them understand their returns and all that stuff.
So the review is obviously for the purpose to keep a conversation in context and to talk about, to be able to understand all of it. But you're not really technically reviewing and sending stuff back to people to say you did this and you have to fix this, or are you even doing that?
I do it if I find a problem, right?
Sure.
Because rather than, and now the staff is at the point, because when you bring on new staff and you have a review note, you need to send it back because otherwise they won't learn it. They won't learn and it'll repeat, right? But now the stuff that I find is really minimal. But if I do, I'll go directly to the client before handing it off to admin for delivery, just so it doesn't take more time.
Right. And that's what I used to get stuck doing. I would most of the time fix things and then not even tell them. Sometimes it would be like, then if I could remember something that was recurring, I'd go back and tell them. So that's also why I was a terrible reviewer. I wasn't a very good reviewer. So that's why I stopped doing reviews too. I was just asking because it's, it's important to have somebody communicate with the client often too. The more often and the more touch points you have with a client, the easier everything else is.
That's right.
Because it's always, I hadn't heard from them in, 6 weeks or 3 months. I mean, we hear that from clients leaving other accountants all the time. Is sometimes it's on the price, but if they're ever leaving somebody for the price, then I don't take them on because they're probably a terrible client.
Yes.
But if they're leaving because they couldn't get a hold of them, then it's like 8 out of 10 people mostly.
Well, and why is that, Scott? That's like an epidemic in our profession, the lack of responsiveness. And yet, like CPA Site Solutions, they make all those boilerplate
Trust me, I know, because Paget's thinking of using that
No,
to do their website.
no.
I know. I
Okay,
know.
you just have to put your foot down. Absolutely.
This is where my foot leaves the door. I'm just like,
Oh my
I'm done with
God.
it.
No,
I
that's
know.
terrible. Well,
right, we keep going, keep going.
So they
Sorry.
put like on their our values page, if you go look, you can tell if someone's using CPA site solutions because their values will always say, I don't know, but responsiveness is one of them on there, which just drives me crazy because
Everybody uses that template too.
Yes,
They'll
they
use the same
do. It's
template,
so
they think
stupid.
they're responsive. That's
But
that's a low bar to meet. If our values to bring to you is we respond to you, that's the lowest bar to set with anybody. That's like telling your
Unfortunately-
kids, I value you, so I'm going to respond to you when you say something to me.
That's right. That's right. How you know that I really love you? Well, I answer when you call me.
Half the time I don't answer when my kids talk to me.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I got to be more responsive. I got to add that to my values. Sorry.
Well, unfortunately, you brought it up. That can be a differentiator in our profession is to just simply respond to people's emails and phone calls, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's important.
So, well, it's an epidemic that I think is deep rooted in people's fear of being yelled at. We don't want somebody angry with us. And then imagine for a CPA that has to deal with a lot of clients. And I mean, I'm just using that as like the core example today, because I feel like that's maybe the lesson to take away too for somebody. If you're afraid of picking up the phone and talking to a client, why? Why is it so hard to call up a client and so hard to get back to the email? Some people aren't cut out for it too. I had a team member that could never respond to people, and it just couldn't even respond to emails too. Some people are afraid of responding, and I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe there's just an inherent, and I don't know if you've ever had that difficulty too, but if you don't have that difficulty, then you're breeding the same type of people that enjoy talking to clients and enjoy the client facing stuff.
Well, let me say this. We prioritize working with nice people. And fortunately, and for the young CPAs out there who are building their book, it can take a while to get there. But when you get to the point where you have all the business you really want or can handle, then you can decide who you're going to work with. And we'll tell people, we only work with kind people.
So that's your vertical.
That's
My industry vertical is kindness. And there you go. Then you have a whole subset of people that you can deliver to. If you're kind, truly are, because some people are just not. Some people suck.
Yeah,
and they
that's
can't
right.
help it, but they get in their own way.
And they look at it as purely transactional. If you look at this relationship as purely transactional, you're probably not the right fit for us.
Yeah. I like it. You could do your whole marketing all around that. and it represents you, right? Like that's a hard trait too. Sometimes it's hard to be kind to people for somebody that inherently looks at things as transactions. If you're going to somebody because I need my taxes done, and I'm going to you because I'm not using TurboTax because my stuff's a little bit more complex now. So I'm going to come to you and have you do my taxes. And it's all about them, and they want to get the best deal, but they're also going to take up a ton of your time.
Gosh, nightmare.
We all get those.
Yep.
And so that's somebody that obviously is not gonna, and I like how you said that, like it's somebody that doesn't really respect your time because it's a transaction to them.
Yeah.
Look at how somebody treats a waiter at a dinner, or somebody, in front of you at line, and you'll see how some people treat others when they see it as a transaction.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how to weed the bad people out, is how much respect do they have for others and empathy. I think that's a telling thing that we can do just through any interaction we have with our, people early, taking them on as clients, because that's a very hard thing for some other people to gauge when somebody's willing to pay. I think if somebody's willing to pay large amounts of money, they bring with that money an attitude too. Mm-hmm. And they shake it around everywhere that they go, and then they throw more money at it, and they think that's going to be okay. I don't like that.
No, I don't either. And it's kind of fun when you come across someone like that, and they think because they've shook the money in front of your face that gives them the leverage. It's kind of fun to walk away.
It is fun. It's very satisfying for you personally, I'm sure, and me, because I don't normally do it. Like normally I let that money talk and I'll take them on. And then we always learn after the fact, oh, why did we take this person on? And we can always point it back to, all right, yeah, they definitely are paying us a lot more than than most people say yes to, right? Like for certain proposals that we try to price out. So in the beginning, maybe intuitively, and when we do value pricing too, we'll price it higher for somebody we don't really want to work with. And some people slip in through the cracks where we price it real high and then they accept it. And it's just like, did they really accept that? Now we actually have to do this. And now we actually have to go through with it. Like I don't even have the guts to tell somebody, nah, you're probably not a good fit for us. Most of the time I need somebody else to do that for me. I can't even do that. I can't say no to somebody. That's a hard thing to do. That's why I can't be in sales anymore because I'm too tempted to say yes and please everybody. Not sales at my firm, at least. You know, I'm too attached to all of it to trying to get out of the sales process now. You said you're still doing sales.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things to get out of, I think. I like it too.
Yeah, I really like it because it's where the relationship starts. And you kind of, if as a firm owner, me doing the sales, I'm able to filter and get the kind of clients that we want. If I brought someone in and they just sold, we could sell all day, right?
Right.
Our service, there's no problem in terms of demand for our services. So to me, it's important I want to be the person that decides who we're bringing on because it's a quality of life issue. But, I kind of have that luxury because we're relatively small. If we were going to scale, certainly that wouldn't work.
And that's where my head's at too. Like, do we stay where we're at? I hit a ceiling, and I think sales is what's keeping me from growing, and so that's preventing us. The ceiling has been 1.2 million for a long time. We recently got past that, but I'm pretty sure it's because of ERC and other extra billings and things.
What's your staff size?
It is 10 people now. So 10 people, not including me. I don't count myself anymore because I'm trying to keep things realistic.
Yeah.
And I do sales, so technically I'm a person. And if I had a salesperson, I'd probably call them staff. So 11, I guess. But the hard thing about that is scale. That's the word that's thrown around. And recently I had Ryan Lazanis explain what it is.
I make the differentiation between growth and scale. Growth is, you see a lot of firms grow, but the people that are working in the firm, the owners, the partners, they're driving themselves further into the ground as the business increases in revenue. Whereas scale, if I just provide a very simple explanation of it, is when we grow the top line, where we're not further driving yourself into the ground, where we can have your business operating systematically like a machine, essentially. So that's kind of the difference. And it really comes down to the business model.
So if you've been listening, you've heard this. And for you, Sandy, the business can work and grow without you.
Yeah.
If it can continue to grow through sales and it can continue to hit certain goals and it doesn't need you to continue to grow, that's scaling because that's setting something in motion and it just keeps working for you. Like that's why people love digital assets or digital things that you can sell because that scales because it grows without you.
Yeah.
They're able to put things in place so it can grow naturally.
And by that definition, I would say I'm sort of there. For the longest time, I was kind of a slave to the work and wanted to remove myself from the day-to-day. And I would say I'm 80% of the way there, which is great. Now, it killed me that the 2 years of the pandemic just absolutely killed me and put me way too close to everything. But, that affected all of us.
Well, some people came out of it better and some people came out of it worse in some ways. Sometimes, everybody came out of it different. Everybody came out of the pandemic different than when they went into it. So I use 2020 as the portal, right? Like a lot of us went into 2020 thinking one thing about our firms, about our teams, about our life, and then came out of it thinking entirely differently. And if you didn't, then something else has changed. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you've been for the last 2 years, right? But
yeah.
Or it just hasn't sunk in yet on what you think, like what you're doing vastly differently. Or you just ignored that there was something going on. And I think there are some firms that did that and just kept going into the office, and in their own little bubble of a world, everything was still normal. Nothing changed for them. Their clients still came in. They still made about the same. They didn't take on anything new. They didn't change any tech because they were in control of everything in their own little world. Now they are failing to see the benefits of all the positive change that other people adapted.
Yeah, I can't even imagine who those people you just described would be. I mean, is it
but that's because you don't run into them. They're so stuck in their bubble that they're just some people that are in front of you at the grocery store that you don't even know.
All right.
You know, if you still go to the grocery store.
Right. Good point.
So recently, I just kind of joined Twitter. I can say that in quotes, and that's how I met you. Is kind of on Twitter. And you post a lot of cool introspective type things too. So you, one thing you mentioned about the drinking water, and I'm a big water proponent.
It is.
I'm a big, I mean, that's now I'm drinking a lot of sparkling water. I don't know what's gotten into me, but I kind of cut everything else. I cut drinking out too. So if you cut that out, there's not much left to look forward to when you just drink water all the time. So I had to get sparkling water because its variability, every time I open a bottle, it's somewhat different. It may not have as much fizz, and it's not as spicy or tingly, and sometimes it has less. So at least I get something different each time, and that's exciting.
That's a hoot. That's a hoot. Sparkling water makes me belch. I can't do it. I want to do it because I want the flavor, but yeah.
Yeah, if you're not into it. See, that's the thing though. Like if you were into drinking, you said Diet Coke, right?
Diet Dr.
So
Pepper.
everybody's got
Don't
their
get it
thing.
twisted. Diet
Dr. Pepper is a big difference.
Big.
Yeah, Coke and Dr. Pepper, big difference. I'm sorry. Because I was a Dr. Pepper drinker, or I used to drink a lot of juices too. And then I heard there was a lot of sugar in juices. So I stopped drinking sugars last year. And God, do I feel differently by not drinking sugars. That was like a one big shift in diet, is just not drinking things that have any sugar in it. So now I don't drink anything. It's just a lot of water.
And isn't it crazy? You said you feel so different. I was blown away. Just that small change. It's like if I had known how much better I would feel in terms of my energy level, I would have done it years ago. But,
All right. So, and my pivot is think about things that you do in your firm, like unintended consequences of doing something differently. So when we started pricing everything up front and putting everybody on like a subscription, all of the different things that we're saving on too. Or for my office, I moved out of an office. So here was the cost benefit analysis of having an office, or everything that I thought we would be saving on. There's a lot of savings on that and unintended, but then there's all those other unintended consequences. Like my team loves it. They think it's great. And we are benefiting in other ways because we feel more connected than we did when we were in an office every day. So, I might do one thing for one reason. Like you stop drinking because you don't want to get that urinary tract infection or other things like that, right? Like kidney stones.
Kidney
but
stone,
then
man.
all of the other positive benefits that you get are just a bonus, right? Like these are long-term benefits that you don't even realize when you're making those decisions of just, should I get a diet? Like, because in the moment, there's a quick dopamine hit of sugar, right? Even though it's not real sugar, it's like the synthetic sugars.
Tricky sugar.
It's tricky sugar, but you still get the same hit and a bit of a caffeine hit too, I'm sure. So, that short-term benefit then was, you didn't even know the long-term consequences and benefits of that. It's like, and I'm trying to relate it again to like a firm. When you decide to do something, like you did the 100 days of no code recently.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if you find an automation or something to save, the other unintended bonuses are what else you can do with that time.
Yeah.
Or what else you can do after you've started using this platform, let's say Carbon, right? If you start using that platform to do certain things, will allow you to do other things, and then kind of have some of these unintended consequences. Like the fact that we were using Carbon that was the reason why we could go remote and fully remote everything and not have to go back to the office.
That's good.
Because everything was still on the backbone, at least, or the tracks. Those were the tracks we moved, rather than the tracks being a physical pieces of paper and physical notebooks that you were passing from person to person. If it was like, working with clients' actual data, and you have a notebook, a physical binder, or a slab of papers that you're just,
Ugh.
I remember firms that were running off of like, not really notebooks, but like folders of the clients, or not folders, envelopes. It was envelopes, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you've done taxes.
Yep.
Everything's in an envelope, and the envelope's going from person to person, from desk to desk.
Yep.
If you're not working out of an envelope, then you're working out of a platform, and then the unintended benefits are all the other things that, I could talk about all day, but there's unintended consequences too for going fully remote. And you work out of your house? Do you have an office?
I had an office that was a residential condo, but I'm going to lease that out now. I'm actually at home today. I'm buying a commercial space that I'm not going to occupy. But I'm leasing it, and I'm going to use it for my address. I'm buying it with a business partner who has a law firm, and she's going to occupy it.
Are you going to have an office there that you can hop on
Yeah.
to? Or
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's cool. But
tell
I'm
me more.
working from home. Listen, I am bullish on real estate. I took the first house I ever bought, I converted it to rental rather than selling it when I bought my next one. And now we have like 6 rental properties, so it's not like we're big time ballers, but it's a great way to build wealth over time. So anyway, this is our first foray into commercial space, but it cash flows built in because my business partner is going to occupy. So it's just
Right.
phenomenal. Love it.
6 properties. Wow. So, and do you manage any of
Yeah.
that? How do you handle your taxes?
Yes.
Do you have partnerships you're dealing with? Or?
I do, but everything's relatively simple. I mean, we do tax,
Well,
so
if
we
you're the
know
one
how.
doing
Yeah,
it, you know
how to
we
set
know
it
that
up,
stuff.
right? You don't screw it up on the front end like our clients do.
Oh my gosh. You've got the hobbies, and you're still able to run the firm, but then you have another place to go, like to get away at least.
Yeah.
And that to me is what I would appreciate out of an office, to not just to get away, but to stay focused. I lose my focus. People used to talk about work-life balance, right? Like I lose my focus at home because it's too much life and not enough work. That's like it. Some people have the other problem where it's too much work and they're working too much and they can't turn that off. I got too much life and I don't have enough work-life balance because I'm balancing too much life at home.
Well, that's a refreshing perspective in this profession because I think it's tilted too much the other way.
Sure.
So we need to learn from you.
True.
Tell us how to
Yes,
do
but
that.
I need to learn from everybody else because I need to balance too. Like I didn't have any balance when I was working too much. I was working 80 plus hours a week, easy. I had nothing in between where it was either working way too much or not much at all. Not doing any work really. Just like kind of handling some sales calls and turning the faucet. When we need to turn the faucet on, I can dive in and close a bunch of business. But now my meeting today was, you don't need to bring anybody on. We're pretty much good. We just kind of hired somebody and we're doing some transitions. So it's weird.
That's
right?
awesome though, Scott, because now it sounds like the firm doesn't need. So why don't you use that available time to create other sources of revenue?
I did it to create a podcast. That's what I did. I used all that available time to just talk to people, and I have fun doing that. That's that I enjoy more than other stuff at the firm.
Well,
to be
what
honest.
you're doing is a service to the profession.
I'm here to serve.
I feel it, man. It just oozes out of your pores. It really matters, though. I think one of the things that has come from the pandemic is just really building this connective tissue throughout the country. And it really matters. It's something you and I talked about in our February call, is just connecting with other people who have a similar lived experience in terms of the profession. And saying, oh, you too? There's just something about that camaraderie. And then there's also the exchange of ideas.
So there's reinforcements of that connection. So I'm going to drive the metaphor, right? So you said the connective tissue, and there's some where the tissue is stronger and it has tighter bonds, like different communities, like Realize and Twitter.
Yes.
And, different people are connected in different ways. Zero was that for me. Like it almost was like Zero sponsored a connection through a bunch of people and created a connective tissue for me. That's how I knew Donna. That's how I know Ackerman, and most of my co-hosts I kind of all met through Zero. So I feel like, they're anything, whatever that is, that's where your orbits kind of circling the next round of people too that are very much like you. So you find your little orbits, and then people just start orbiting together because they're paying attention to the same things and they're doing the same things. So it's like I'm trying to turn it into an orbit metaphor, and I'm not smart enough to do that. So I'm gonna back out of that one. Yeah, I'm gonna back out. So the no code thing. So I like the habit. I'm reading Atomic Habits again.
I do believe in the power of habits, and I've never really known why. What I like about this book is it's explained to me why. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The compound interest of self-improvement. Who doesn't want to improve? I mean, this profession is full of people who want to improve.
And that was something that like I created a lot of habits last year, and now I feel like I fell off a little bit. So I'm rereading that book. And I feel like the no code thing was definitely something that you had to habitualize.
Yes.
And you were doing it consistently. I haven't seen you talking about it or heard you talking about it on Twitter at least. But tell me what happened there.
Okay, so there are a couple ways to look at this. You could look at it as a failure because I didn't complete the 100 days. But alas, that's not the case. My perspective on it is that I got what I needed to out of it at about the 35-day mark. And it exposed me to a lot of tools.
Sounds like almost exactly a third of the time, almost like 33 days would be a third.
Yeah.
But,
oh, see, you were bored of being an accountant. You did that math so quickly. I wish the listeners could see the look on your face because you didn't like that joke. It didn't land well. It was too corny.
I liked it, but it was like, I wasn't that impressed by it because it was easy. Like this was like, you're talking about 100 days and then you said 35 days. So to me, I was like, well, are accountants as dumb as me?
Well,
like that was what went through my head.
You didn't read my sarcasm. So that was it.
So let's continue with sarcasm because I have trouble reading sarcasm. I think I might be part autistic. I've never considered that before, but now that Ackerman makes fun of me a lot about that, I was like, well, sometimes I don't pick up on social cues, and sometimes I do get like I don't get it sometimes. But I digress.
Well, there's so much to be said for neurodiversity, and like it used to be that if you were to say that you thought you were autistic, that people go, oh my gosh. But I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean...
Oh man, I got all kinds of mental problems here. I can deal with anything. I can never talk to myself because my conversations don't end well when I'm talking to myself. I'll tell you that right there. Usually it spirals upward to a certain point and then it goes down pretty quickly.
Uh-oh.
Oof, if I'm talking for too long. So I got to work on that one.
Well, going back to the no code thing. So it was excellent because it forced me to do something that I had been wanting to do for a long time. And that was just the discipline of committing myself to learn about this, about the whole no code space, the tools available, but less than the tools available, more of just the possibilities out there. So by sort of codifying the process through this daily thing, it was wonderful for me. And I would say it was transformative, but as a firm owner, at about that 1/3 mark, it got into granular stuff that I decided this is not really going to yield a good ROI on my time because I'm not going to be actually building these things out. I can hire that or I can develop those skills internally with our team. So it for me, it was wonderful. I highly recommend it. But, start it and you'll realize benefit fairly quickly in the process, but it doesn't mean you have to do the full 100 days.
So Stats didn't exactly say that, and I recorded something with him, and he says...
But let me tell you something, Scott. Don't fall into that trap, because I do it myself. I totally get it, because you're always in delegate mode. You've got these things that are changing the way that you do the things that you do, even if they're high-level things, right? That aren't like the minutia day-to-day, but like there's kind of this baseline expectation for knowledge workers now, where you got to know how to use Word and Excel and all these things. There's kind of like these like point of entry things you expect everybody to know how to do. I genuinely think like your Airtables and your Zapiers of the world, that's an essential part of knowledge work. Like that is a personal productivity tool that is a step change in output to the point where when somebody knows that stuff, they are such a big delta from the people that don't know that stuff that you're only going to pick those people up. And before long, it becomes like the new floor of knowledge work.
I feel like I get it now. You've articulated it the right way. It's like typing. Somebody that hasn't typed before looks at a keyboard and like, how do you memorize where all these keys are? Like, we take that shit for granted, right?
Yeah.
Just knowing what the possibilities are opens up the doors to everything else. Because I was like, what is Airtable? Is it just like I said, is Airtable just Google Docs? Like, but you can do a little bit more. And it was like, he's like, I think we related it to just learning how to type on a keyboard. Like at first you look at it and it's like, where are all these keys everywhere?
Yeah.
Like, why I don't get where all this is. But then you just know. And then so half of the battle is just creating the muscle memory of understanding what everything does and knowing the possibilities. Then
Very well
it's
stated.
effortless to kind of pick it up. Effortless to just pick it up and then just start typing.
Yep.
Like
that is a great way to put it. That's it. It's exposing yourself to this new way of thinking. And once you get that, then you see the possibilities.
It's our brain is a muscle, right? So it's like golf or piano or keyboards or whatever it might be. Like with golf, once you know how to hit that ball, your muscle memory is there. Doesn't matter how your swing looks. It's just like this, the fluidity of it.
It's all in the head. Yeah, it's all in the hips.
Or it doesn't matter like but you can't type by pecking at the keys. Like once our brain learns where to go and what the rudimentary clicks are and how to use something, then it's easier. But Apple product, now I'm going back to Apple. Apple intuitively, you just know how to use different things that they come out with. You don't even have to develop muscle memory to just figure it out. First time I grabbed an iPhone, I just knew how to use it. It was already using all of my other muscle memories to augment their technology. Everything else that I inherently knew, I was able to do on there and not have to learn much at all. But if I pick up another phone like an Android, I don't even give it the time of day because I don't know, how do I get out of this? Like why do I have this button here to do this? Like, why do I even have buttons on the phone? I don't get it.
I had the same experience. I was gonna give a try to a Samsung Galaxy tablet, and I just couldn't figure out my way around. It's like, okay, nope, not worth it.
No, I don't even want to look at anything else. Apple makes enough. It's like that's a bubble that I can live in and be happy about and proud of. That's what I think Apple users are kind of proud of, their own little bubble too.
Yeah.
Some are more quiet than others, but I'm a loud one and I like to pick on Android users because I hate texting with green bubbles. Oh God, I hate texting with green bubbles. I don't know what it is.
I don't even know what you mean, texting with green bubbles. What do you mean?
When you text somebody on iMessage, it's blue.
Okay.
The chat bubbles are blue if they're using an iPhone and they're green if they're not.
See, I never knew that. That is interesting.
Apple
I'm
has
going to
done
look into
something
it.
Because kids too. So I read an article about this. Kids are outcasts almost if they're not in the iMessage group. So there's a lot of kids that have created iTunes and Apple accounts on different devices just so they can be in groups and group chats.
Oh, wow.
So,
do you know who Scott Galloway is?
Yes.
Okay. Do you listen to any of his pods?
Not enough. I'd like it whenever I hear him.
Okay. I really like him. He has talked recently about, he talks about Apple, like the iPhone is a signal that you're among the wealthiest, smartest people in the world. And it's a signaling thing, according to him. But he's talked most recently about how he thinks Apple's going to move to a subscription model. And I think it totally makes sense, where you pay X amount of dollars per month and you just get access to any new device that comes out. And I think that's brilliant.
I love it.
I figured you would.
I would pay. See, the crazy thing is I would probably pay more than I imagine that they would make something like this. There would be a price range of about $200. I think some people would definitely have the balls to have like a $5,000 a month subscription. They definitely have the balls to do that, but I think that I would venture to believe that I would probably pay between $800 and $1,200 a month.
Okay.
For
I think
all Apple stuff.
200
That's
is
Apple
low.
everything though.
Yeah. See, I think
Yeah.
200 is too low. If you're talking about desktop hardware, if it's just phone, yeah. But
Oh, interesting.
if you're
And
talking about
desktop,
all
too.
of their stuff, think AirPods.
Well, my whole team uses Apple products, so we're all on Macs on our offices too. So that could be a lot if it's a business.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking more
account.
at the consumer level. But think as a consumer, if you had immediate access when it came out to
All products?
yeah, to all products, what would you be
Ooh,
willing
not
to
just
pay?
phone or anything.
And obviously, they would have to tier it at some level because some people are just going to want the phone and maybe the AirPods.
So in our lifetime, I think that would happen, but I think that's a pretty big stretch to say all products because that's a lot. But it feels like that anyway, though. When I went into an Apple store, it's a different experience than anywhere else. They're always able to stay ahead of anything. So they just rebuilt an Apple store near us. They use their own mountain for the stone inside the store. There are no registers. There's nothing to hint or indicate that there's a one place that you should be there. You have the freedom to go anywhere. There's nothing happening like in the back, or there's just everything everywhere. And if you want to buy something, they're there. Some days they're open and you can't buy anything. It's a day that they don't sell anything. They're just there to help.
Yeah.
And that was baller as hell. Like I was there on a day and I said I wanted to buy this. It's like, yeah, you got to come back on Monday to buy something.
That's wild.
We're just here to support. Yeah. Everybody was just there for like support. You could order it on your phone and then it would be delivered to your house. But the store is not there really as it's more like less like a showroom, but you can live and learn in all the products there too. So that's it's an amazing experience, I think, as a consumer, and everybody should be looking at obviously Apple and Disney. Those are the two platforms, life platforms that I subscribe to and will continue to subscribe to as long as they're still looking at Amazon too, maybe. I mean,
yeah,
those are the three.
Well, so Disney, what does they deliver that you would place lifetime value on?
Entertainment.
But there's so many sources of entertainment.
I know, but God, I love what Disney does. So Disney Plus is one of the only ones we use in the house versus all the other ones. I have all the other subscriptions for entertainment, but I think Disney is just more, I feel safe when I turn it on for the kids too. I don't know what it is about that.
I would agree, but see, that's kind of where my thinking is going. Your kid's going to age out of that. So where's the lifetime
They
value?
haven't, though. I haven't aged out of it.
But they're 4 and 8.
I have lifetime value. Yeah, but they're still doing Boba Fett and like stuff that I still watch at my age. My daughter does. She watches a High School Musical and she loves Olivia Rodrigo and she's like all into that. And like that's one of the channels that she always goes on to. Like they bought up The Simpsons, and I used to love The Simpsons growing up, and now my kids love The Simpsons, and we could watch any episode. You know, it's every single season of The Simpsons on there. Like I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, it amazes me. I'm totally with you on the Apple thing, but I'm just pushing on the Disney because I don't.
You're pushing on the Disney.
Yeah,
thing,
because not because I think you're wrong. I think you're an individual, and there are lots of other individuals like you. I would argue that Apple, on the other hand, is more global.
Apple might be more global than Disney.
And global is probably not the right word. I mean,
universal to everything.
Everyone's experience.
Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also the fact that they have the hardware and the software too, and they're delivering both of those together along with the entertainment and media. Because think about this now. Apple also is delivering a lot of our entertainment in the house. The only two channels that I usually go to are the Apple and the Disney. So whenever I go to Apple, I'm watching We Crashed. I watch, I think they had Coda. That one. The Academy. Apple goes out swinging. They make a movie for one of their first years as an entertainment company, and they win an Academy Award for the Best Picture.
Scott, did you know they didn't make that movie? They didn't make it.
Well, somebody else made it.
But they bought it. That's the brilliance. That to me, when I read that in the media. That is their brilliance. They didn't make it.
They bought the right movie. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So they saw
what
it at
movie
Sundance. They bought it, And now they won just brilliant.
They backed the right horse.
Yep,
That's
yep.
what they did. They backed the right horse.
And you know how pissed Amazon and Netflix have to be. That the
Hell yeah.
first Academy Award that was won by a streaming platform was Apple.
Apple. I love that though. Isn't that like a testament to what they value and what they do? That if they're going to do something, they're going to do it right. They changed the way I looked at music. And music is where my heart is. Music.
What your listeners may not know is that Steve Jobs, his book is facing outward, and when I look at you, he's over your right shoulder. Just,
What does that mean? Is devil on which shoulder? The devil is on some shoulder. So the interesting thing about that is 62% of our listeners are on Apple Podcast. Most of our listeners, that was another listener demographic piece of data that I thought was important from earlier, what I was saying, like majority Apple iPhone users. I know that there's Spotify on both platforms. So if you're on an iPhone, you could use Spotify. For me, it was the first podcast player that I ever had.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's what's preloaded on your iPhone when you get it. Like, I went to Pocket Cast because I just like the UI better than Apple's.
It is such a better UI. Pocket Cast was such a better experience, like to use and all that. And I still go back to the Apple Podcast or whatever I listen to stuff.
Well, you're just a devotee. Is it devotee?
Devotee. I am. I don't know how to say it either. I say devotee, but
it sounds much more sophisticated to say devotee. So I'm going to go with it.
It's like Target too. Do you go to Target or Target?
Yeah, definitely not Walmart.
So that's something too, right? Like Walmart has been branded by that. I will forever associate Walmart with stuff being just a lot cheaper and all that. And Target differentiated themselves. So that I think as a firm, you can differentiate yourself just through your pricing.
Yes.
Pricing.
I love that, Scott.
Attracts the right client too.
Yes. And to go back to what I was talking about signaling, part of why we want to carry an iPhone is what it signals to others about us. Part of the reason we want to shop at Target is the same thing. So you're right. We could do that exact same thing in our firm. But I think that's why we don't need to be afraid of the pricing, because there is the assumption naturally that if you pay a higher price, you'll get higher quality. Right?
Yeah. Now, it's very hard to not meet those expectations. And I say this with care. But if somebody expects it to be higher quality, then they see every reason why it should be. If somebody's paying a lot, because then they will second guess their decision on going with this product. They don't want the shame of that either. So I think that it's a deeper psychological level there too.
That's a great point. And along those lines, it's why I stay away from people who are price sensitive. Because if they're that worried about it, they're going to nitpick every little thing. But someone said one time, and it may be like a cliche, I don't know, so everyone may know it, but I read it and it was so poignant to me, and maybe I saw it on tax Twitter, that the person who will write you a $500 check, it was stated so succinctly on Twitter, but the point was that the guy that writes a $10,000 check, he just writes it, no questions.
Right. And the person that writes the $500 check has to ask a lot of questions because it's more important to them that they're spending that $500, and they better get some value out of that $500 because they could have spent it in so many other ways. Even if they don't have the money. I was talking about this with somebody recently too, where it's like somebody that will just spend without any regard. They tend to overspend money that they don't have. There's a lot of people that are like that too. Well, they'll spend more money than they don't even have versus somebody that has a lot of money. Some of them really do not want to spend it too. So some people that have a lot of money to spend, they're much more careful about spending it versus somebody that doesn't.
True. So
that's an interesting take on a lot of this too, because it could be somebody, you could look at the person that has a lot of money as they write this check because it doesn't mean anything to them, but that's also a mindset of how they feel in their relationship with money too, because there are people that I got a client that deposited a check for $5 million and they're still pinching every penny. They're still pinching every penny. and making sure they're not spending too much everywhere, right? So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I
I see that. My mom recently, she and my dad live in a community that has an HOA, and so the pressure washing is provided, right? It's part of their
Okay.
dues. But the guy came around and he did it, and so she tipped him. He's already paid by the association, but she tipped him. And so she was tipping him a certain amount, and she gave him a number of, she tipped him $25. I'll just say that.
Sure.
So she had like 2 tens and 2 ones, and then the rest was in change. And when she gave it to him, he wouldn't take the change. He only took the $22. And I told them, I said, that's a poor man. Because a rich man would have taken that $3.
Hell yeah.
You know?
Hell yeah. That is interesting way of seeing that.
I mean, don't you think that's true?
That is very true.
We know the value of money.
Oh man, obviously, there's some people that'll walk past money on the ground too.
Mm-hmm.
Some people won't pick it up. That's dirty. I don't care. I don't care if it's dirty. You know, some people will dig through the trash for money though too. So we'll go there. Like I heard somebody had lost one of these like USBs with their Bitcoin in it, and they have been digging through the trash.
Oh my gosh.
To find it, but it's a lot of money, and this was like definitely money that was probably in the billions or millions or something.
Yeah, I'd be digging too.
High. Like you would think of something like that for real. Like isn't it associated with his ID, and there's like a number on the chain somewhere on the blockchain that you shouldn't need this like code key.
It's supposed to be.
Like, can't they just scan your retinas?
So hey, and you maybe not want to go down this rabbit hole, but crypto is an area that I don't know a lot about, and I don't have a lot of interest in, but I know as a CPA I've got to get there.
All right, so this will be a good topic because I feel the same way, and I feel pressured to talk about it more. There's a bubble to be popped with this crypto thing. I do not think we're creating more value or creating more resources in the world with this. So I think it's overinflated for hype, and I don't know enough about it, and I don't think I want to because I think everything will eventually shake out. But there's not a new resource that they're creating of value besides the fact that they're making things decentralized and easier, which in and of itself has some value. But I think it's way overinflated, and I think that the tax complexities also make this a touchy subject and a great interesting topic, but the tax implications are only for us to do our job better and deal with all these complexities. So I think that for firms there's a lot of money to be made, practically speaking, because we're still serving a purpose, but they've created more value for us because there's more complexities and more forms for us to fill out. So that's the value it's created for us. But I don't think that there's enough production of valuable goods there to justify the money being dumped into it. Does that make sense?
Money being dumped into...
There's a lot of money in crypto. People are like,
okay,
pay me
investors,
in Bitcoin.
yes.
I need to do this in Bitcoin and invest your money in Bitcoin. Put this,
right.
Like, I get it. It's like gold, right? Like to some degree, it's not renewable, but it's not, the only thing of use for is it's a currency, a decentralized universal currency. And with that, then you can now send money to somebody in another country without having to worry about all the exchanges and stuff. But I guess, isn't that an exchange in and of itself? Isn't that another way to have to exchange your currency for another one?
Right. Yeah.
To be able to transfer it with somebody else. I mean, I'm sure there's other benefits to that too, but there's just less middlemen. I think that's the value of it.
I don't know. I know that there's so much I don't know and I don't want to know, but I feel like I've got to learn.
Well, the tax stuff, yes. But the general understanding of it, I think it's the same thing as understanding the SEC or what's the thing, the federal bank. Like if you understand the federal bank, which I don't even think I understand because people tell me, do you understand it? And I was like, I don't know, what's there to understand, right? Like if I don't understand that, then I'm probably not the one to be talking to about this. But I know it enough, and I know enough to know what my money's worth. I don't know what Bitcoin's worth right now. As this conversation's to be had, it could be 80,000, it could be 20,000.
Right.
I have no clue.
Right.
Do you know what Bitcoin is
No.
worth? Like, but have you heard people talking about these crazy numbers?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
ever since I heard of it, I've heard crazy numbers like 18,000, 14,000, which was a lot. And then at some point last year, people were talking 40,000, 60,000. And then at another point, 20,000. Like, what?
The volatility is crazy. And I think there's so much opportunity for fraud and manipulation. Elon Musk, remember when Dogecoin came out last year?
Yeah.
He completely played that and drove the price up, and then basically said he was just playing around.
Don't you think he knew what he was
yes,
doing?
He did.
Though it's the same thing that GameStop did,
right,
with Robinhood. It's exactly the same thing with GameStop, and GameStop didn't do that. A bunch of Reddit, but that's what Reddit did to Robinhood, right?
Yeah,
like to a degree. So it's also exposing the fact that all of this stuff is decentralized, is exposing the frailty of some of our systems.
Yes.
Too. And Bitcoin is known to be fragile because nobody gets it yet, but it is volatile. But the stock market is just as volatile sometimes because of the same factors and the same inflows and outflows and concentration of wealth and all that other rules and regulations. And
I've seen lots of losses this year on GameStop stock, of course, as we're prepping returns. But I did have a client the other day who made six figures, well into the six figures, trading AMC last year. It was fun to see. It was like, okay, I've seen all these losers. It's finally nice to see someone win.
Do you think if you added up all the losers, is it more or less than the one winner?
Actually, it's less because this person won big.
Cool. So not $1 million, but just over 500,000, less than $1 million,
right.
Somewhere in that range.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Somewhere in that range.
And then I emailed them, and I'm like, man, you killed it on this. And they're like, yeah, and I still have a ton, and I can't believe it's about to turn into long-term capital gains.
Oh, that's a big deal too.
I know.
That is pretty cool.
But you see stuff like that, it's like, well, shoot, man, I wish I'd bought some AMC and did what they did. But
yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
One of my ties to Apple is the fact that my first foray into the market, I bought a lot of Apple, and it was dirt cheap compared to what it is now.
When did you sell, or do you still have it?
Well, no, I still own it, but it was back in like 2002. Yeah, I know. I can just sit on it. I don't need to do anything. So I keep putting more money into Apple.
Are you gonna...
Anytime I look at the stock market, anytime it ends in a 20. So when it was like 420, I bought more. Even back when it was like 120, 220, 420, but it's only when I'm paying attention. And I don't know why it's the 20, but I do know that the original stock was in 2002, and it was very, very low because of all the splits and everything. But I think it was around like $7.
So tell me how many shares you have.
I have a lot of shares. It's definitely not $1 million of Apple stock. I'll say that. The value of it right now is less than $1 million.
But it's up there. Nice, man.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's all micro shares too. Every time I look at it, it's a different amount because it's always been dripping into it. So all the shares just drip right back in. So the dividends, which is a great thing that Apple added, like within the past, I don't know, they haven't always had a dividend. So ever since they've had that, it was like E-Trade can re-drip it, or what do they call it? Reinvest.
Yeah, reinvest. Re-drip sounds a lot more fun, but
I've been using that phrase drip too much now. I talk about drip marketing, like, and other things. I don't know why. I just like that because it's like, it sounds wet and fun.
Hey,
yeah.
here's a fun thing.
Atlanta's got a lot of,
what were you gonna say?
I was going to say Atlanta's got a lot of culture that I use. Like I think I heard drip from the slime culture, from the rap Atlanta culture.
Okay,
I was going to bring that in too.
My son bought this shirt the other day that had drip on it, and I asked him what it meant.
Yeah.
Apparently it means like you have a lot of money or jewelry or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So interesting.
That's why I use it. I try to work it into other words or other.
Yeah. Here's a funny thing, and maybe I can go out on this. It's a drinking game for accountants, okay? So, during the pandemic, the ASCPA started their town hall. And so here at the firm, me and my number one, when we watched the town halls, we started, drinking, not really. But the joke is every time you hear Eric Alsterson say either drop or leverage, you take a drink.
So we used to do that at our tax seminars. Every time they said boot we would add it to a tally and have that many shots at the end.
I love it.
So a
love
lot of
it.
other accountants, they do that. Sometimes when they're on Zoom calls with me, they put a tally every time I curse. Because usually it's a bunch of professionals and I'm the only one who just doesn't have a watchful eye on my mouth. And so, yeah, so they do it for different things, but that's interesting that you guys do the same thing. So it's like, it's part of the numbers person in us or something
right.
that we notice these things and then we make it gamify it.
Well, and when you're
that's,
doing something so boring, like, ASCPA town hall, boring. You need the information,
boring
but
as
it's
hell.
boring.
Yeah, you got to liven it
That's
up.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
Carbon, you were talking them up when we talked in February. And so one of the on our list to do after tax season things, I already had our accounting team demo it and they've sold me on it. So we're going to do that this summer.
All right. So, shout out to Carbon.
Well, and it's a direct result of your salesmanship. So they can,
Can they attribute that sale to me? Tim, can you please attribute this
right.
sale to
Revolution
or
Financial.
Yeah.
Give him
Awesome.
his kickback.
Give me my kickback. Yeah. We'll say there's an ROI on this, on this sponsorship here.
Carbon.
Where are you cheering?
I'm cheering because Stuart does a podcast, and I was on the podcast.
And I'm going to be on the podcast.
Oh, God. That ruins this whole thing.
Stuart McLeod is the CEO of Carbon, and he speaks to a new leader each episode to discover what drives them, the biggest challenges they've faced in their careers, what they did to overcome them. Search Accounting Leaders Podcast in your favorite podcast platform, and you're going to find it. So Ackerman was on the Carbon podcast.
Yeah, and you got mad that I didn't mention this podcast.
The Carbon Magazine.
Carbon puts out the best publications. That's a fact.
Carbon Magazine, they've got articles, guides, ebooks, templates, webinars, videos around growth, leadership, technology, and work life. This, to me, is the reason I still run a firm, because of Carbon Magazine.
This is the highest praise. We should be paying them to do a podcast read.
Because I pay them already. I pay them plenty, and it's worth every penny.
They
have
Carbon's
a wealth
the best
of resources.
all around.
Yeah.
I
could read about and talk about Carbon for days.
We both use Carbon.
Carbon for days, Carbon for weeks, and Carbon for years. Carbon for life. Visit carbonhq.com. That's Q with a Q.
No, it's K.
Carbon with a K and HQ with a Q. Carbon. Imagine if Carbon was spelled with Q U A R.
It's Carbon with a K, not with a Q. Don't go to Carbon with a Q. I feel like you're going to get arrested.
If they spelled it Carbon with a Q. KARBON H.
Carbon
HQ.com. Thank you, everybody.
That's beautiful.
We're going to see the return on investment there, but it's all a long thing too. Like a different exposure and talking about different products with the peers and the community, I think always breeds a better buyer experience too, because you feel like you own the sales process. In these long-term decisions, Carbon gets that. Other products don't get it. And I'm talking about sponsors too. Like if any sponsors happen to be listening at this stage here, as a buyer, as an accounting firm, you're going to make the decision yourself.
You're right that there's so much more value when you learn and hear about a product or a service in the context of relationships. If we were just approached by a salesman, I mean, that happens all the time, and we just schluss them off, right?
That's what LinkedIn's for, right?
Exactly. Hearing on text, Twitter, or through your podcast, it's people who we know and have relationship with and whose opinions we respect. When someone speaks to a product or service that they use and that has delivered real value for them, that's when my antenna perks up.
Ooh, that's to be continued. And maybe we can have a conversation later after you use Carbon. That'll be a case study.
Okay.
We'll do a Carbon case study of a new user, and we'll talk about your experience with Carbon. Sandy, it's been a pleasure. I have enjoyed our conversations.
Scott, this is so fun. I love your podcast. I love that you cover, it's not just focused on the profession, but the people behind the profession. And you're so easy to talk to and listen to. And I left our conversation in February wanting more, and it's the same today. Thanks for the opportunity. And I look forward to the next time. And let's hang at Engage in Vegas, okay?
I will be there, Sandy. And, everything you said there, you should leave us a review too. I appreciate the comments, and it's just feeding into my ego. I love
Do you
it.
want it?
I love
Where do
having
you want the
conversations.
review? Where do you want the review?
I don't do. Oh, you got to do it on
Of
Apple,
course,
right?
yeah,
Like
okay.
you use Apple, even though because you can't review on your podcast player on that one, right? Or can you?
I don't know because I never do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try to do that. That would be so dope. I appreciate. I know you have an Apple ID because
Oh, well, yeah.
we are in the cult, right?
That's right.
We drank the Kool-Aid, and we're in the portal. We're not coming back.
We're gonna be the first
Sandy,
subscribers.
I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scott.
Anybody looking for Sandy? It's what's the Twitter handle?
At Sandy Revolution.
At Sandy Revolution. If you enjoyed this call, you'll enjoy her tweets and everything too. She's very introspective. I enjoy it.
You
Thanks a
rock,
lot,
Scott.
Sandy.
Thank you.